Hello everybody, it is your local mediocre programmer here, Whisper788, back for an episode 2 of the Learning Common Lisp video. I want to start off this episode by trying something I have been thinking about doing for a while. You see, last time I tried using a list like such and executing it, which obviously it crashes because 1 is not a valid function, right? And we got this error message with the colon plus an R1. That gives me an idea. Obviously, to grab something from a list, we use the function getF. Then followed by the first parameter is the list or the database we are trying to get the value from. So we want to getF 1, 2, and 3. And I was thinking that maybe, does Lisp auto-generate the colon R1 as like the first element if you don't give it labels? So like if I do R1, will this then give me the first element? Okay, evil1 is not a function name. Oh wait, we need to add a list, I forgot, because obviously we don't want 1 to be executed. GetF, the property list 1, 2, 3 has an odd length. The following restarts are available. Okay, it seems like I was wrong about that. That's fine. We just move on. Now, a little bit of problem that we have straight off is that I inputted a lot of data in the past, and because the interpreter has been reset, all that data has been lost. So I'm probably just going to speed up the footage of me inputting all that data again. So see you when that's done. Anyway, I now believe that we are up to date. Welcome back after the very small time lapse, probably. And we have defined a bunch of stuff. So we have, again, our global variable, global database, DB, with the little stars to define it as global with nil inside. So we remember last time we used the print function and we printed the global database. And we saw that, yes, just prints out nil. So obviously we have here this little line. We can add record, which is the function. We take in all the parameters we take in actually that's something interesting to point out. I realize now that when you pass inputs to a function or a list to a function, that list itself can be executable code. Like here we see we take in a list input of the make CD. So it runs inside here the make CD code. And then it takes the output, which I mean is technically the same as if we put like a list here instead of this make CD part, right? Like if we replace this with list, it's evaluating the list function and just outputting back all the parameters into the add record function. But it's interesting to think about the fact that we can do that if we want. We can just use a list as one parameter and have executable code in that list. So what we could do is quickly change this. So instead of the name of the record, well, the record being well, actually I think it's the artist first, I believe. Well, actually title. So say that we could make the title the great song, right? And then we can make the artist be Billy Bob Man, the most famous artist, of course, of all time. You probably all heard about Billy Bob Man. We can change that to 6, and we could, the ripped is true. So we just add the record, Undefined function add record. I thought it defined it already. Oh wait, we need this. Let's just paste that in there, and we run this. There we go. We've added a title, great song, artist Billy Bobman, rating 6, and ripped is true. So, are we going to be doing anything with that information? Are we going to be doing anything with those records? Because the stuff printed by the REPL after each call to add record is the return value, which is the value returned by the last expression in the function body. The push and push. Push and push. The push. And push returns the new value of the variable it's modifying. So what you're actually seeing is the value of the database after the record has been added. Okay, I understand that now. So we get to see the record we get to see the contents of the database after the record's been added, because the thing that is returned is the last evaluated expression. What I understand of a function, right? It just returns what it was doing last. And in this case, what it was doing last was adding something to our record, our database. Okay, that makes sense. Looking at the database contents, you can also see the current value of database when it used by typing database at the REPL. I'm guessing the REPL is the command line, right? That's weird. That's interesting. That we can just input the variable name. Yeah, because the variable name is obviously going to output itself. It'd be stupid if it didn't. So we can just see it like that. That's nice, because it means we don't have to just do this every single time. Like, we don't have to use a print function every time we want to print it. And if we print it, use the print function anyway, we see the database twice, which is pretty annoying. So we can just not use the print function. That's good to know. Good to know. However, that's not a very satisfying way of looking at the output. You can write a dump database function that dumps out the database in more human-readable format, like this. Whoa! That's interesting. So that's actually really interesting. I haven't seen another language do something like this. Probably Python can. Of course, Python could probably do this, but I haven't seen any syntax for that. Right? I can't believe it has quite a lot of support for dumping like databases. Oh no, it's not a feature of the language. It's a custom function. That's interesting. Define function dump database. Do list. Is that a loop by any chance? CD? What the? Is CD a function we've declared before? Have we declared a function of CD yet? Format, true, or T, whatever T is meaning here. I'm not quite actually understanding what this function does. This function works by looping over all the elements of database with the do list. Okay, so do list is it seems to be like a equivalent of like Python doing like for item in list, right? Like that seems to be the equivalent here, right? I wonder though, is the CD here the iterator we're using? That's my guess. Like, CD is probably going to be the local iterator, like the I, right? Or is it going to not be an iterator, but the element we're looking at? Again, with the for item in list from Python, right? Is it going to be item, or is it going to be like, for example, in Lua being like for I equals 1, and then we have the hashtag list do. Is it going to be an I, and then we have to iterate, well, get an index at that specific location of the list? That's what I wonder. That's what I'm guessing the CD here is being used for. And the database is obviously the list that we are iterating over. So we want to format. For each value of CD, you use the format function to print it. I'm guessing format is like a custom version of print that allows for little things like this. Seems like tilde open bracket tilde a tilde 10 t tilde a tilde %sign tilde close bracket. What the hell is this formatting? Genuinely, this is black magic. I'm guessing we're going to be learning how that works in a bit, but for now, not really knowing what this is supposed to represent. I don't quite understand yet. Obviously, the CD here is what CD we're iterating. Yeah, I think I understand that this CD is not the index, but I think the CD is the actual item in the list that we are looking at each iteration. So, not that bad. This function works by looping over all the elements of the database with do list macro, binding each element to the variable CD in turn. Okay, we were right there. For each value of CD, you use the format function to print it. Okay, admittedly the format is a little cryptic. Yeah, I have seen that. It was very cryptic. However, format isn't particularly more complicated than C or Perl's printf function. That is actually what I was thinking. Like, it's just another way of formatting. I guess when we get into it, we'll understand how it works a lot better. I hope it's not that hard to use, but we'll see. Or Python string %sign operator. Okay. In chapter 18, I'll discuss format in greater detail. For now, we can chapter 18. Geez, that's a long way to go just to print how format works. For now, we can take this call bit by bit. As you saw in chapter 2, format takes at least 2 arguments, the first being the string where it sends its output. Okay. T is the shorthand for the stream standard output. But I thought T was true before. Or was that just wrong? Right, I think that's wrong. It takes at least 2 arguments, the first being the stream, where it sends input output. Guessing T in this case stands for terminal, right? It is shorthand for the stream standard output. Standard output. Okay, so it is just the normal printf. The second argument to format is a format string that contains both literal text and derivatives telling format things as how to interpolate the rest of its arguments. Format directives start with tilde, much as the way printf directives start with %sign. Format understands dozens of directives, each with their own set of options. However, for now, we'll just focus on the ones you need to write dump database. The A directive is the stiff. I have no clue how you say that word. I'm not even going to attempt that. It means to consume one argument and output it in a human readable form. This will render keywords with the leading and strings with quotation marks. For example, format T, tilde A, Dixie Chicks, nil. Okay, wait, does that mean lists end with nil? Do lists end with nil? I'm not sure. Title nil. Okay. The T directive is for tabulating. The -10t tells format to omit enough spaces to move the 10th column before processing the next. -a, -t doesn't consume any arguments. Okay. Well, no. A-T doesn't consume any arguments. Format type, format terminal -A will print out the artist, right? Then that will then the -10. Oh wait, the A being followed up by this adds in this over here, right? That's just normal text. Then the -10t adds 10 spaces or something, right? Like that's what I got from that. And -A just produces Dixie Chicks. Okay. Then it prints nil for some reason. Checking over here, doesn't print nil at the end. Okay. Actually, for just sake of argument, we're just going to input this here so we have it later. We have the dump database in our utilities. Now things get slightly more complicated. When format sees a tilde open bracket, the next argument to be consumed must be a list. Okay, so we're going to be printing out all of the list, I'm guessing. Format loops over that list, processing the directives between this and this. Okay, consume as many elements of the list as needed for each time through the list. In dump database, the format loop will consume one keyword and one value from the list each time through the loop. The $% directive doesn't consume any arguments, but tells format to emit a new line. Okay, so it's basically \n. Then after the tilde bracket ends the loop, the last %, tells format to emit one more new line to put a blank line between each CD. Technically, you could have used format to loop over the database itself, turning our dump database function into a one-liner. Okay, defun dump database format t. Oh my goodness, that is horrifying. No offense to Lisp here, right? It's no worse than like printf, I think, but like, oof. That is like here we're opening a list, right? We're opening another list, like the layer underneath. Then we're printing a value. Then we're printing a two dot thing. I completely forgot the name of it. $10t. What does that? Will add the spaces that we want, like the spacing. Then the A will print the next element. Then this will add a new line. Then we're closing. This will add a new line. We're closing. Okay, and that gives us this, right? But we're adding the do list here so it looks nicer, like they're saying there. Technically, we could be doing in one line, but nuh-uh. That's either very cool or very scary, depending on your point of view. I am going with the very scary option. I am not. I mean, I feel like I'm here with both, right? This is both cool. I feel like this is something we need to keep right down somewhere, probably, right? Like, if we go down here, we trying to find the directives here, right? So if we quickly exit the interpreter, oh no, you probably wouldn't want to do that necessarily. Let me just open up a new terminal instead, and we smash this down there, we smash this one up there, and we use a good old nano, and we're going to do lisp underscore notes, right? Nano list notes txt, and we're gonna just put a tilde and a, let's see, tilde and a prints a item from the input. That's my understanding of it. And we're going to add next the %, that will make a new line. We want a tilde, and we want this, enters a list, and we want the exits a list. And the last one is obviously the tilde10t or whatever, right? We then can put that as adds spacing. Right, that is pretty much all of it, right? That's I think all of it. So we're probably gonna want to exit that. Or you know what? Let's keep this. Let's keep this here. We might need it later on. So we're just gonna close that. We tell format to emit one new line. Right. Where were we? Improving the user interaction. While our add record function works fine for adding records, it's a bit lispy for the casual user. You think? I feel like the add record is really nice. I don't feel like it's not bad for the casual user. You know, I think it's amazing for casual user. And if they want to add a bunch of records, it's not very convenient. True. It's not good for adding a lot of records. I think that we definitely need you definitely want a function to build on top of that function. You have that nice abstraction, baby. Let's go. They want to add a bunch of records. It's not very convenient. So you may want to write a function to prompt the user for information about a set of CDs. Okay, I get that. So we're not talking about a casual user being a programmer. We're meaning like casual user using our piece of software, right? So we're going to be doing input. Yay! We can ask the person questions. Let's go. This is going to be fun. You might want to write a function to prompt the user for information about a set of CDs. Right away, you'll know you will need some way to prompt the user for a piece of information and read it. So let's write that. Alright, we're going to be defining a function called prompt read. The prompt. Okay. Why do we need the prompt input? What is the prompt input? Is the prompt going to be the text and outputs so that we can ask the user for something? Format query IO. So query IO is a global variable. I'm guessing it's a standard variable used by the actual language itself. Like my guess is query IO is some kind of Lisp feature, right? That tilde a will obviously use the int, will then grab the variable prompt and output it there, and add a little thing there with a little space there, you know, a bit like the prompt, like we have here the prompt, and then it has that, and then we're gonna have whatever the user types. Like the user types is going to be over here. Gonna have the prompt there. Alright, understandable. Force output. Force output. What a weird command. Query IO. Can I just point out something quickly? Lisp is using, or at least whoever wrote this book is using kebab variables. Like we're using these as separators for spaces. That's interesting because obviously Python, for example, right, is known for using underscores or snake casing, but most languages just use like first thing then caps lock. But I like kebab casing, but I don't usually get to use it that often because other people don't like it. It's either got to be a Lisp thing or just a personal preference of whoever wrote this book. I hope it's a Lisp thing because I like that. I like that a lot. Force output. Query IO. We're going to basically be outputting something from this global query. We're going to be reading a line. So we're going to be reading the line of the whatever the user inputted, right? Huh. Use your old friend format to emit a prompt. There's no blah 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 in the format string, so the cursor will stay on the same line. Alright. Then the call to force output is necessary for some implementations to ensure that Lisp doesn't wait for a new line before it prints the prompt. Why does it say implementations? I thought Common Lisp was trying to prevent implement. Is this a tutorial not for Common Lisp and just for general Lisp languages? I'm guessing that's why. I actually wonder in Common Lisp, are we gonna have to do that or not? I don't know. But the force output is necessary in some implementations to ensure Lisp doesn't wait for a new line before it prints the prompt. Why would you code that? Why would you code that behavior in your language? that's funny. Like, why did it have to wait? Surely you could just print when the function is over. I don't know, probably some reason. But hey, it says some of them don't need it, so might not need it. Question though, why is prompt read not just a actual standard function? Probably because query IO already exists, and this is not a bad way to ask a question in this tutorial, just using the function, because that makes it easier for the tutorial at least. You know, like if you're just using an input once, it's fine to use this variable shenanigans. Then you can read a single line of text with the aptly named readLine function. The variable query IO is a global variable, which you can tell because of the star. Yep. That contains the input string connected to the terminal. Okay, so it's just the raw data that is being inputted by the user. Okay. Interesting way of getting input from the user. A variable. Weird, but hey, not complaining. That contains the input string connected to the terminal. The return value of prompt read will be the value of the last form. The call to the read line, which returns the string it read about the trailing new line. That the return value of prompt read will be the value. Okay, how about let's just quickly try to get some input from the user, right? Why don't we say we want to format, well actually, whoops, we want to format a query IO. We're closing the star. We're going to have a tilde, well not actually tilde, a. We're going to be adding our little thing there, closing the bracket. And for our prompt, I know, you know what, because we're just doing a test here, right? We probably, oh, I see, because format takes the first input as where it's going to be outputting it. And we're going to be outputting our text in the query IO because we want to query the user. That makes sense. Because if we just wanted to output something like this, right, we would just put it like that, right? We get hello and we get nil because it ends. Presumably, it ends the lists with nil. Probably. I don't know. But maybe. But if we add the query IO to the mix, it again asks for hello, but that means then we can add in a prompt, right? What is I think I get one. So like if we say what is your name, and we get an input like that. Well actually, then we could input a force output. Well actually, let's not do the force output because we can test if Common Lisp has that implementation. So what if we just read the line, we go jolly, read our line like that, and we get the query IO, so we get from the input of the user, we are going to be grabbing the data like that. And for good measure, we are going to be inputting all that in a print function. And that should work, hopefully, if Lisp doesn't care about spacing, which I hope it doesn't. The fact that it's all on one line, let's hope. Okay, we need that fourth output, it seems. Weird, really weird that we need that, but who cares? We do what the program language tells us to do, don't we? So we want to force the output of this, and we want it to force it to be a query, right? We want query IO to not put a space, right? So we just close this. Format query IO. What is your name? Force output query IO print lead. That doesn't make much sense to me. What? I give up. Let's just use their function and see. Does it have to be in a function? Is that what I'm getting at? Have to be in a function? Because now if we use our prompt read, it works there. Is this just the command line messing with us? Is this literally just the command line causing us havoc? Right? It's gotta be just the command line, right? Right? Like, because if we get prompt read and we quickly go back and we add a prompt read, right? And then we change something here. So for example here, we change the prompt. Instead of prompt, we just say, what is your name? Right, will that still work? Will it still work? Will you still work? We just grab the prompt, we get the read, but with multiple D's. And we don't really need input, but we technically define input, so to stop a bug, we will put hi. What is your name? Hello, my name is Whisper788. I misspelled Whisper788. My typing still could be improved quite a bit. Okay, why did that work and why did ours not work? If I just copy this, right, and we remove the last bracket here, yeah, it's just the terminal. It's just putting it in the command line seems to mess with how it works. So we're just gonna accept it needs to be in a function. Don't know why the function's not defined by default, but like, it's old language, might not have all the functions we need, you know. We gotta build up the tooling, right? Very minimal at the start from what I heard. So we're gonna carry on. We're gonna use old friend format to emit a prompt. There is no blah blah blah. You can apply into your existing make CD function with the prompt read to build a function that makes a new CD record from the data it gets by prompting for each value in turn. So we define a function prompt for CD, we make a CD, and we prompt the artist, prompt read title, artist, rating, writ. Oh. So you're getting what you're saying basically. What the book is saying essentially is that, say we wanted to print a list, Right. Can we just shove a prompt read such as this, and we grab a like prompt read test, well, first, really just one, right? Then can we just do another, whoops, oopsie daisies, what if we then do another prompt read. Why did I did that from habit, whoopsie daisies. We just get another prompt and a read, and we input this time the number 2 followed by our lovely convention. We then can input a prompt read, but this time it is free, and we close that bracket, and we close it all with 2. And if we run this, actually I realized, whoops, we probably want, no, actually we don't want that. I was thinking putting a list there, but we don't need it. Okay, system read inval parent, the prompt read has no value. Does it not? Didn't I make a variable? Define prompt read. Prompt read. I defined the prompt read, didn't I? I have the prompt read. Prompt read. Do I have to do this? Will that make you happy? Value variable prompt. Why are you trying to read it as a variable? Do you classify it as a variable? Is that what you want? Do you do that? Or is it because all of you need to be in your own little bubbles? Is that what it is? Because all of you need to, at the end of the day, I need to tell Lisp that all of these are functions in themselves. So I feel like I need brackets around all of them to tell Lisp that, right? Okay, prompt read is not a function name. Can I then now, do I now have to put it in a list? Oh my goodness. Please. Yes, there we go. So can we just do now like 4, 5, and 6? There. We can auto-generate a list like that. Can we just do that? It seems we can. So my guess is that what they're doing here, right? The make CD takes in a list as input, and they're just prompting each side, because obviously the list can be executed like commands or functions or whatever you want. And it seems ripped is a true and false situation, but it says y and n. Can y and n be evaluated as true or false? Like if I go y, no value, y has no value. If I do t, that's true. How does it know y and n is true and false, though? Is it just input will automatically make it true or false? I'm guessing the input function will do that automatic conversion for you, right? That's what I'm guessing, right? That's almost right, except prompt read returns a string, which, while fine for the title and artist fields, isn't so good for the rating and rip fields, which should be a number and a boolean. Okay, the last one is 100% a boolean. Okay, T is true. Depending on how sophisticated a user interface you want, you can do it for arbitrary lengths to validate the data the user enters. For now, let's lean towards the quick and dirty. You can wrap the prompt read in a rating. For the rating in a call to Lisp's parse integer function. Geez, there's so many different functions already. There's like, obviously, to us it's expected. I mean, the only syntax already here is a list, so you're gonna need a lot of functions. right? So it's expected, but like still. Unfortunately, the default behavior of pass integer is to signal an error if you can't pass the integer out of the string if there's non-numeric junk in the string. However, it takes an option at keyword argument junk allowed, which tells it to relax a bit. Okay. Ooh, because this function, right, pass integer, it takes this input, and we can use these labels as sort of like. So what I mean is what I'm talking about. I know it seems a little bit weird, going all over the place, but say for example, for argument's sake, right, we have a function like get, right? Get can take in parameters in bash, right? So we can input into get something like commit. We could input into get like pull or push, right? But we can also, if we want to add customization for what get is doing, we add the dash dash for any long words or just a single tick, right? So you can do the same thing in Lisp. You can tell it, I want to change this function, this not function, but this parameter in this function. And then I can follow it with what is the thing that I want to change. It's very bash-like. It's very bash-like. And this is making me feel like that bash might have been inspired by Lisp. Genuinely though, bash really does feel like Lisp, but instead of lists, it's all about strings, right? That seems to be what I'm getting at, right? This was what I'm getting at. I like this. I don't know how would you code that kind of behavior in. I'm guessing how you would code that behavior is like if I wanted to use a define function and we're calling it test wow, or style of Lisp test wow with a tick instead. So I'm guessing for the inputs of this function, I can just say like we can just put a colon, and we could say like the text, and we can call this text, and then we could have the code be print the text, and then we close all that. The text is a constant and may not be used as a variable. The following restarts are available. Okay, can we then do that by doing a wonderful list? Will that let us do it? No. What? Okay then, but how do we do this? How would you have this junk allowed? I want this in my functions. It's so useful. I want these parameters. I'm guessing we'll get to that later, but still, I would like them, please, to tell me how to do that. I want it. I want that functionality. There's still one problem. I can't find an integer amidst all the junks. Pass integer will return a nil rather than a number. In keeping with this quick and dirty approach, you may just want to call that 0 and continue. Lisp or macro is just the thing you need here. Why are they calling all the functions macros? Is there a reason for that? Is there some kind of distinction here? Is all functions in Lisp a macro? I don't know. I don't know. Is just the thing you need here. It's similar to the short-circuiting. Okay, the two lines in Perl, Python, Java, and C. It takes a series of expressions, evaluates them one at a time, and returns the first non-nil value, or nil if they're all nil. So you can use the following. Oh my goodness. I'm not gonna lie here, this is a bit hard to read because of the fact that the operator comes first and then the function comes first and then its parameters. That makes it quite hard to read. Oh dear, oh dear. So we do an OR. So we do the OR between this or 0. Is 0 true? But still one. If it can't find an integer amongst all the junk, will return nil. So does OR prefer 0 rather than nil? List all macros just in. Oh, I see. So the OR function is going to prioritize things that are not nil. That is nice. So we can basically just use OR to force our output to be not nil. Okay, I like that. That's nice. So like if we quickly use the OR function, right, we could put into OR something like that. So we could like have OR 1 or nil. Which one? Or we got 1. We return that with the first one nil. It chooses nil because there's no other choice. And we put here 3. Chooses the 3. So all these logical operators seem to prefer. I'm guessing AND works the same, right? If we have AND like that. No, AND prefers the nil. That's interesting. So it seems like a feature exclusive to ORs then. That's very practical. Very practical. In fact, so practical, I believe it should go into the Lisp notes. OR function will like any data more than nil. Okay, yep, that's fair. Fair for an OR preferring something that is not nil. All right. Get a default value of 0. Fixing the code to prompt for ripped is quite a bit simpler. Just use the common list function yes or np. So this is saying like you can input y or no. Okay, and I don't know what the p is for. What the p is, but it seems to just be so this is where it converts y or n to t or f, right? That is what I'm getting at. In fact, this is the most robust part of the prompt for CD, as y or n-p will re-prompt the user if they enter something that doesn't start with capital Y, N, or capital N. Putting these pieces together, you get a reasonably robust prompt for CD function. Can I just point out something quickly? Lisp seems to be really nice for writing scripts, right? Like if you wanted to build a script, this seems so much more functional for doing that than like say Python. It seems so script oriented. I can't explain it. It's like this is the language I would use to build a command line system that I would need for a project, right? I think that's interesting. Putting these pieces together, you get a reasonably robust prompt for CD function. Okay, so we got the prompt read for title and artist, which are text because they'll be fine, and we get a or. We're going to pass the integer, right? And we're going to be making the junk yes, but we're going to prefer the 0 if the junk is not good, right? You could probably throw this all into one big function as well. I think that's the joy of all this. Like any syntax here is very formulaic, and you could just shove it in a function and you'd not really feel any problem, you know. Maybe people coming into
a large project that's existed for years might struggle because you had to make so many new functions. But hey, it's just how it is. And then we're asking for ripped yes or no with the yes or no or p dash p, whatever that means. Finally, you can you can finish the add a bunch of CDs interface by wrapping prompt for CD in a function that loops until the user is done. You can use the simple form of the loop macro, which repeatedly executes a body of expressions until it's exited a call to return. For example, define function, add CDs, loop. Okay, we got a loop function. What does loop do? Let's see what loop does. If we get loop, we say 10, because I'm guessing that's a number, right? Right, I'm guessing it's a number. Please be a number. And we are going to say print. Wait, quick question. Add record prompt for number. Okay, wait, I think I get something here. In the loop parameters, I think it's asking for how many times it wants to loop and with what variable it's going to loop with. For in this case, I, right? That's what I'm getting at. And then we print out I such like that. Is that how we're doing it? Eval 10 is not a function name. Try, okay. Oopsie. We need a list. Right, that's what we need. Variable I has no variable. Okay, what the hell does the loop function do then? Loop add record prompt for CD, if not return. Oh, you can use add CDs to add some more CDs to the database. Let's go. That's very usable. I will say though, these incessant amount of open brackets and closed brackets is rather annoying, but who cares? You know, who cares? Doesn't matter all that much, you know. Not bad. I think though that is probably where I'm going to leave it for today. I'm going to stop, say goodbye. See you hopefully if I do another episode. See you in the next episode. I feel like I can see the difficulty start with Lisp. I'm still enjoying it. No lie, it's still fun. It's very interesting, and I want to try and build a project in it eventually. I think something I want to code in Lisp is I want to make a text adventure. I think that would be fun, and I think it would lean into what Lisp is good at, right? Even, you know what would be cool? Imagine a text adventure where you're allowed to execute Lisp commands in the text adventure. Think about that. That would be cool, right? Or even like, imagine building a game where you have two robots that you have to program how they would fight. And Lisp would be pretty good for that. I don't think it would be bad. I mean, so executable and metaprogramming focused that it would be pretty fun to do that. But we'll see. Anyway, this has been Whisper788, and I'll see you if there's a next episode. Have a good day.